Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Source Wall. Today we bring you a very special episode looking back on an animated series that took a lot of risks with the Batman mythos, but risks that I feel paid off in a series called The Batman. But instead of just talking about the Batman, I was lucky enough to bring on two guests that actually worked on the series to help me share with you what I find so special about the show. Please welcome series directors Sam Liu and Brandon Vietti. Thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure.
And thanks to House of Secrets for allowing us to film this episode. Check out their website in the description box below, or if you're in the LA area, visit them in their Burbank location.
I was not at Warner Brothers. I was at Sony at the time, finishing up a job when I got the call to come over. Where were you at?
I was in video games actually. I had left Sony because it was during that era where, you remember when the union even was crying the death of 2D animation. So everybody was telling us basically we had to get into like 3D. We would need to learn it. I had an opportunity from a friend who worked at Sony PlayStation 2 at the time. It was that long ago. And so I took that job and I was in San Diego basically working in video games.
We met at Sony. We worked at Sony for years together. We kind of worked with a large group of people that ended up going over to Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Many of them landed on either Teen Titans or The Batman was another one that brought a lot of people in.
Yeah.
It was like a reunion coming to Warner Brothers and hooking up with all the Sony friends I made.
The weird thing too was I was friends with Jeff Matsuda even before I got into animation, and so when I was in video games, I would go up and I'd visit people and stuff like that, or they'd come down and visit me, and so Jeff was one of the guys that I would still see and hang out with and stuff like that. So I remember going up to his house, and he was saying like, "Hey, I'm developing this series, I'm developing Batman, and so, I've been showing me sketches and stuff like that, and I would kind of give him a little, again, we were both sort of like artists from comics at the time, I was helping him sort of break down, some anatomical kind of things and stuff like that, so, but for me, again, I was in video games at the time, and he was like, hey, do you ever think about getting back into animation, and I was like, yeah, sure. I've worked in like all the three sort of like nerd things that I loved as a kid. Like I've worked in comics, I've worked in video games, I've worked in animation. And they're all sort of, oddly enough, I feel like animation is the one that's the most structured. Because like comics, once I got in there, I was just like, wow, I'm surprised these even get made. And video games too, it's just like, wow, you spend all this time on development. There's all these things, and I'm just like, and there's all these things that have to get cut just because the time runs out. You know what I mean? So I just remember because you guys were up in LA at the time, right? And so I was the last guy to move over because I had to move and I had to sort of like, quit my job and all that kind of stuff.
That was interesting. I remember hearing that pitch. I don't know who came up with that. If that was Sam Register or
I think it was Sam Register.
Sam Register, who's now our boss at Warner Brothers Animation. Working with Jeff Matsuda and Dwayne Capizzi and Mike Hogan to develop the show and get it up and running. And it was an interesting pitch, and I had worked on some Batman shows before, so I was kind of intrigued by the new idea and the new direction to try to see what it's like when Bruce is young, when before really the big supervillains had shown up. It was the time just after he had kind of taken down a lot of the mob bosses and a lot of the kind of civilian clothes wearing villains that were just sort of street thugs and crime bosses, and it's he's still having a good time. It's still fun. He's not like the Dark Knight yet.
Yeah, I remember like one of the mandates of it was sort of like is like he had more time with Cal off than with Cal on, and so it was definitely I think the director was more about humanizing him. There's a lot of pop cultural kind of stuff in it also. So I think he was kind of dealing with a lot more sort of like, just younger things. He's a cool CEO. He goes to basketball games and he plays basketball. and he has friends and things like that. So
And he eats cereal. I remember that.
and
that
smoothies. I remember.
I remember that was a big thing. It was like he should be eating cereal while sitting at that computer or something like that.
Yeah, I remember, even when we were doing action and things like that, like, Warner Brothers obviously is a big studio that has, a lot of history, and so I remember freaking out the timers, right? Because they were just saying, no, that's timing way too fast, But we would always refer to things like anime and stuff like that. Look, no, they're doing these turns on 4s, you know what I mean? Instead of, 12s, whatever that they wanted us to do. So I think a lot of us really put a lot of effort and a lot of, because we just wanted to do some cool stuff.
Yeah, a lot of love into it.
Yeah.
I mean, Warner's is a great place. They offer a lot of freedom to the artists. The show had some freedoms in it, I think, because there was a lot of discovery. We were figuring out how to, shape this new Batman world, this new Batman, his villains. We were writing the rules as we went, and I think that helped pull me in. I think it pulled some of our crew in too, to kind of, they got to be part of that journey, part of that discovery, and part of bringing a new Batman to life after the popularity of everything Bruce Timm had done.
Right.
Those were big shoes to fill. But I think we all kind of felt like, well, we're not trying to fill those shoes exactly. We're trying to find our own way of doing this, and that discovery is always fun for an artist. So.
I don't know, for me anyways, I think that, I gotta give credit to Jeff Matsuda again, because he was sort of like one of us in a way, you know what I mean? Like, he was somebody that we worked with back at Sony and stuff like that. He was, a guy that I had worked with already before, so he was really open to a lot of creative things. I don't know, like the Riddler, I was really into, been like sort of emo stuff, and so I think that's partially influenced why, Riddler kind of looked the way he did, but even just sort of his motivations, I think partially it was Dwayne, obviously, and partially was, Jeff's contribution. Because again, he was supposed to be like a crook that just wants money, But he evolved into this thing that he was like information. He was a guy that sort of stole information. So it was fun in a way because it allowed us to sort of have some input into it too. Because even like the Penguin and stuff like that, right? Too, like your first one.
Oh yeah. Penguin was shaped a lot in our fight scenes.
Right.
I don't know if anybody had seen such a battle-ready Penguin before.
Right.
I mean, he was like an incredible martial artist, and he had all these trick umbrellas that were like crazy ninja weapons.
Yeah, but that's your contribution, right? Because he was.
It evolved. I mean, it was all of us. It was Jay Oliva was storyboarding for me.
Oh yeah,
at the
we had
time,
a crazy crew too. I mean, if you think back on it, when I think back on it, I'm almost like envious. Like I wish I had that crew again.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Oliva went on to direct a number of movies for Warner Brothers Animation, and I mean, one of the things he's known for is his crazy fight choreography. And he brought all that to the table for Penguin, and really helped shape an entirely different Penguin I don't think anybody had seen, and a fun one. Mr. Freeze was one I got to help shape a little bit.
Yeah.
Had a tiny little contribution.
Yeah.
I know Jeff was trying to figure out how to shape the new design, and I had kind of done a little sketch of like sort of an ice shape over his head instead of the traditional dome that they had designed for Batman the Animated Series, which was cool, but we didn't want to just copy it straight out. Jeff's vision of Mr. Freeze was more organic, like the ice came kind of from his body.
Yeah.
And so kind of just did a little sketch of like some ice shapes, ice sickles and stuff shooting out of his head, and he kind of took it and ran with it and came up with the cool design that it is. I don't remember general rules for creating the villains, and I really looked to Jeff and Mike and Dwayne really to kind of take the lead on that. There were some really interesting discussions. I remember, especially for some of the newer characters, like we were speaking about Penguin. He came with the Kabuki twins.
Yeah.
These really crazy, I guess sort of they're female bodyguards or something. I don't even know if it was like super clearly defined. But in the beginning, I remember early designs where they kind of had like triple jointed legs and stuff.
Yeah,
like we were trying to figure out, are they?
Or,
Yeah, are they mutants? Are they what are they, you know? And we humanized them, but we made them move in really crazy, inhuman ways. And I think that was part of the fun of them, was that they were a mystery. I don't even know that we ever really had a straight answer on what they were. I knew we had discussions about if they were robots or not. They were not robots. I know that. They were organic, but we just didn't know where they came from. But that was kind of fun of the show, and I think maybe how Jeff's brain works a little bit too. Like, all the nuts and bolts don't really matter. It's kind of like, you know, the wide view of everything, and how it just hits you and how it impacts you and how you feel about it just by looking at it. You don't have to know every single detail about it, which was kind of cool. And so his rogues gallery of villains was like, they were like monsters, really. Like, that's what I really liked about where he seemed to be pushing them in designs, was they're monsters. You hold his villains up next to almost any other artist's pass at those designs, and it's just completely different. The toys were incredible to collect too, because I thought the toys really captured the designs well. And it's one thing to look at them on the TV screens, but then to actually have those toys, you know, really nicely done, and really followed the models. I got every single one of them and lined them up, and they make an incredible lineup.
Yeah, but the lineup is crazy when you look at it. It's just so interesting. You know, it doesn't look like just a bunch of mannequins or something like that. Different heads. It's the shapes and just, you know what I mean. Like, there's huge. There's characters with huge masses. You know what I mean. And there's like really skinny ones and stuff like that. That it's just like this. I don't know, just a cool sort of variation. Yeah.